Okay, so like this out-of-body experience, virtual reality experience, and somewhat lucid dreamy experience, this happened like a year ago, or maybe a tad bit longer, like maybe 13 months ago. But anyway, what the deal was, like you don't even have to be like thinking about something all day long. You could just be thinking about like 9 o'clock at night, one little thing, and then boom, the aliens give you this long drawn out scenario the next morning about it or whatever. Like Ohio, like my trip to Ohio. But anyway, this was pretty clear virtual reality out of body experience with the atmosphere slightly lucid dreamy. You know, it didn't feel like 3D atmosphere. So anyway, okay, so what the deal was, a few months before this experience, in real life, we were at the bookstore, and my sister and my stepdad and my brother in real life used to work for Kraft, the factory. And then this guy came in and had bought some magazines at the Goodwill store or something. I don't know how he got a hold of those magazines, but they were like newsletters or whatever from the 80s. Let's see. Yeah, 80s. And some people, you know, were in it that my sister knew and my dad knew and that I knew. I only knew one person, and that was Alma College, and she's probably not alive today. And she worked for Kraft. Last time I saw her was 20 years ago. So I doubt she's alive today. The daughter, Brenda, I went to school with when I was 4 years old. She's probably still alive, but they had moved to Arkansas over 20 years ago, but they did live down the street from me. So anyway, yeah, so in those magazines, we were sitting there looking at these 1980 magazines, or newsletters. They were from, you know, Kraft factory. I guess they wrote up newsletters once a month or something like that. And he got a hold of them, this guy, and brought him into the bookstore. And so I was like, we were talking about that and looking at the old pictures and stuff. And, yeah, and so anyway, that was like a few months previous to this experience. And then when I had went, a few months later, I went to, the veterinarian, and I drive past Kraft when I go to the veterinarian. And, yeah, and I looked over at the Kraft factory or whatever, and then it was probably, I don't know, like a day later or whatever, or a morning later, I get this experience, this virtual reality experience, out-of-body experience, with the atmosphere feeling slightly artificial. And, I think it was a flat-faced being that gave me this experience, because I know their style. It wasn't Joel that gave me this experience, but there was some slightly sexual stuff in it. But yeah. So anyway, yeah. And the funny thing is, even after this experience, like a few months later or whatever, I went back to the veterinarian and I drove past Kraft Food again, and there was a black guy, factory worker, that was walking down the parking lot with his hairnet on. And now, you know, they have the whole place, it's not open. They have a big fence around it. And, but it was just kind of funny that it was a black guy, because, you know, a long time ago, I remember, like, my dad's friend, like, I was out there shooting basketball, and I was, like, 12 years old, or I think I was younger than that, like 11 maybe, or 10. And that guy, he's not alive now, but he was my dad's friend, and they all worked, you know, at Kraft in real life. And he was, like, you know, there was, like, racial, you know, tensions and stuff there or whatever back then. And he said, you know, black people, they think we owe them something. And I didn't understand what that meant, you know. And, yeah, and at the time, like I said, I didn't really know what that meant at all, you know. That they think we owe them something. And like I say, that was, you know, 30-something years ago. Okay, so anyway, so this is how the experience went down. But like I say, you know, several months, maybe not several months, I don't know, it may have just been a month or month and a half previous to this experience. You know, I started thinking back at, you know, Kraft and, you know, my sister working there and my dad working there. And Alma Gullidge. Yeah, she's a really cool person. The dad was kind of a psycho. I mean, the husband was kind of a psycho. But yeah, I used to spend the night with Brenda. But yeah, they were all kind of dysfunctional. And Alma, she drank a lot. I think he did too, as far as I remember. They both drank a lot. Yeah, they were a pretty dysfunctional family. And like I say, they just lived right down the street from us. But 20 years ago, when her and the daughter Brenda came up to visit me, because I was still living at home, and she had you know, she had to go to Dallas to have an aneurysm taken out of her brain or whatever, and you know, alcoholism can cause that. But yeah, I mean, she looked still, you know, she still looked okay back then, but you know, 20 years later, I mean, she was probably. See, she was older. She, you know, my mom was a lot younger than most of the other moms. She was older than my mom, so she's probably not still alive. I mean, she had to have been 60 back then, 20 years ago. You know, and like I say, she probably wasn't in the best of health. But I know they did remove that brain aneurysm, you know, successfully and stuff, but they had to go to Dallas to do it. Because there's no good doctors around here. Okay, so anyway, so this is how the scenario went down. And, okay, so at first, the alien, which I believe was a flat-faced being, because I know their style, and this flat-faced being, or some of the flat-faced beings, they give me really long, drawn-out, lucid, dreamy, out-of-body experience, virtual reality experience scenarios. Their style's a little different than what Joel gives me. And, so anyway, so, this is how it went down. At first, I'm standing there in an office. And it looked pretty similar to this. It was pretty small. And I looked at, and, you know, it just looked like a normal office. And by the way, the first part of the scenario, I was in a long stretch of the factory, and I've never ever even been to this factory at all. They used to give tours, but I don't think they do anymore. Because it would be kind of fun to take a tour, but like I say, I don't think they do it anymore. But I was in a long stretch of the factory where I wasn't in the factory part yet. It was just a long stretch of the factory that was all offices. I was in like the office personnel part of the factory, and it was like a long separate. Well, not really separate, but it was just a long building that led on into the factory. And actually, there's probably going to be some parts that I'm forgetting, but there is one part that just came back to me where I think I did go into an area where there was kind of a gymnasium and a swimming pool. But anyway, but that's irrelevant. Okay, so anyway. So at first, I'm standing there looking around the office you know, I'm at the Kraft factory plant, except I'm in the office area. In this office. And I'm looking down at like a binder. Yeah, I guess it would be called a binder. A binder. And I see the two owners of the Kraft factory. And, you know, the aliens, they like to mock and stuff, and they know that I say, you know, people are Nazis, or that company is Nazis. Or, you know, I say that a lot, and my mom says that a lot, and so they like to mock that. You know, the aliens like to mock that. So he put that in my scenario. So anyway, there were two male owners, and I knew they were the owners. There was two pictures of them, of the two owners, you know, that was in the front of the binder. And I was looking at him, and they had a Nazi symbol. I can't remember if it was on their clothes, their shirt, or the hat, or both. But they did have a hat on, and like I say, there was a Nazi symbol, but I can't remember if it was the hat, or the clothes, or both. And I just remember thinking in my head, like, oh my God, these poor employees are working, for the Kraft factory, and they don't even know they're working for Nazis. I was thinking that as I was looking at the two Nazi owners. So like I say, I don't know who really owns Kraft. It's not like two individual people that own Kraft. It's not really like that in real life. But in the scenario, it was. Okay, so anyway, so after that, this is kind of funny. So then I get into a hover round. Like this little hover round, and that's not the first time. And like I say, some of these flat-faced beings, the same ones are giving me these experiences over and over again, because they'll put black people in my scenarios, they'll put buffets, and that last one, I can't remember, that not the last experience, but that one experience, I can't remember, I'd have to go look, West Virginia, that one to West Virginia, I can't remember if that was the one that was, I can't remember, I'll have to go look, but it was to one of those cities, states, or whatever that they took me to. I think it was a West Virginia one. And they also placed me, or he did anyway, the alien placed me in a little hover round when I went on down to see the judge. But anyway, okay, so that was that other experience in West Virginia, but they'll put the exact same stuff in my scenarios. And so this being that gave me this experience probably gave me that one to West Virginia, because there was a lot of similarities. Okay, so anyway, so I got into a hover round after I noticed, the binder and stuff, and looking at the Nazi owners. I got into my little hover round, and I just started cruising down the hallway and looking at all the offices and blah, 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 blah. And then I come to a little room, not a real big room, probably about as big as the office room that I was in. Yeah, it was about that big, not real big, but not real small either. It was like an office, well, no, not an office room, it was a break room. During that time, the room, it was more like a break room. That's what that would be better called, the break room. And so then I stood there or whatever, or sat in my hover round, and there was all these, I don't remember seeing any black men, they were all women. All these black women, and they were all different ages, from anywhere between age like 20 to like 60. There were about, I would say about 18, 19 black women, like in the break room. But they were segregated. There wasn't any white people in with them. There was all these black women, like they were taking a break and having a little meeting in this room. And I was standing there like looking at him. A lot of times I don't interact with people, I didn't interact with them. And so anyway, it's like, but I had all these thoughts, like I already knew that they kind of, segregated the place, where black people just sort of stuck with their own kind, and white people just sort of stuck with their own kind, and they had separate meetings. Because that's what they were doing. It's like they were taking a break in that room, in the meeting room, in the break room. And it's like they were taking a break, but they were also having a little meeting. And so then, okay, this is the sexual part. One of the women that looked like she was 20 years old, anyway, like I said, they were all conversing and having their little meeting. But I had all these thoughts of, like, I already knew that there was some racial problems and segregation problems, in the plant, the factory. And, yeah, so anyway, one of the black women, it's like, she didn't raise her skirt up. It's like her skirt was already like super duper duper short. The aliens are able to be really, really animated. And so I looked, it's like the alien showed me her coochie. And it looked just, normal. It didn't look abnormal. It was just normal, total realistic, totally real, coochie. And it was just kind of funny, But that was the only sexual part in the experience. But it was like, she had already worn a skirt that was like super duper duper short, and you could just see everything, and she didn't have underwear on. So that was the only sexual part. But the aliens, they're always sticking black people in my scenarios too. And so that was the only sexual part. Okay, so after that, I ended up, okay, there was this like 30-year-old worker that he wasn't a factory worker, but it's like he was like a manager of the plant, and he was giving us a tour. So anyway, so after all the black women ordeal, I ended up going outside before we went to the actual factory. I went outside, and I was outside in the parking lot of the factory. And it was me and now this time there were several white people standing around. I can't remember if there were black people standing around, but there were many white people standing around, maybe 8, 9 people. And there was the worker. He was more like a white collar worker, like a manager of the plant, and he worked in like at a desk or whatever. He wasn't like he wasn't a factory worker. And yes, and he had just like normal clothes on. He didn't have any kind of factory clothes on because he was like one of the white collar workers, and he looked about 30 with short brown hair. And he was standing there, telling us about the plant, and he was about to give us a tour of the factory part. And see, and remember several months ago when we were at the bookstore, my sister did mention that they used to give tours, but they don't anymore. So the aliens, the alien, he put that in my scenario that about how the worker was giving us a tour. Okay, so anyway, but here's the funny part. Okay, so he was talking to us, and he was just telling us about the plant, the factory. And, he was about to take us on into the factory. And we were standing around. And like I said, I didn't interact with anybody. And then the next thing I know, I look at his face and I see one of his eyes, like, kind of turn reptile-like. And that's when it's like, I just kind of knew that he was like a hybrid or something. And the aliens are doing that a lot in my scenarios too. That same situation. Okay, so anyway, so it's like he was like a, like a reptilian hybrid, worker of the plant. And except he was a white collar worker, and he was giving us the tour. Okay, so after that, I was inside the factory, and I mean it was realistic as can be. Okay, now there was one part where the alien messed up in the programming of this, because there was one part where, okay, this was funny, but it's like sometimes they do this. They'll mess up in the programming when they program you this out-of-body experience, lucid-dream experience, virtual reality experience. They mess up on the programming, and because at one part it's like bam, off the wall. It's like I was at Whitewater, which is a water park, and I was standing there like out on a little ledge of of the water pool, except it almost seemed like I was, I don't know, it almost seemed like an ocean to me. But it's like I was just kind of extended there, and I don't know, it's like I was about to jump in or something like that, but that part was just irrelevant. That part, the alien just messed up in the programming and did something weird like that, and it didn't have anything to do with this Kraft factory scenario. But yeah, so that was a mess up of the aliens. And yeah, they mess up sometimes, because at one abduction I looked up at the sky and it had all these little squiggly marks in it, and I knew that. I was like, wow, that's not realistic at all. So that was Joel that time. He didn't make a very realistic sky, or he just kind of messed up in the programming of it. But anyway, okay, so that was the mess up part of this scenario. Okay, so then, so I'm totally in the factory, and the next thing I know, I'm just kind of standing there in the factory. The next thing I know, it's like over to my left is a buffet, and where people go and eat, and they take their break and eat their food and stuff. I mean, it was just looked like a buffet, and So then, after I saw all the food on the buffet and where the employees went, to eat their food and stuff, I looked up, kind of up on an incline, and I see a worker, and it was Brenda's mom. It looked like Alma Gollage. Her name's Alma, A-L-M-A. And, yeah, so the aliens, knew that I knew that woman, and they put her in my scenario. But Alma Gollage was standing up on a little incline, a little ways not far from the buffet. And she was like at the end of a conveyor belt, and she was like, about to put cheese and boxes and stuff down on the conveyor belt. And she was dressed in factory clothing. She had clothing. She had all white on, and she had the white net on. And that was, Brenda Gollage's mom that the aliens put in my scenario. And, yeah, so then I just started walking around, and like I said, it was pretty realistic. The whole factory was realistic, except, having a buffet right there off to the side of where they actually do the work and stuff, the, factory work. That was probably kind of unrealistic. But yeah, it was a fun experience. And yeah, it's just funny how these beings, they'll give you scenarios based on, well, just whatever they pick and choose, whatever your mind is thinking about or whatever. I'm trying to remember if I'm forgetting anything. But like I say, yeah, I know at one point, oh, wait a minute, I know I'm forgetting something. Hold on. Let me think. Oh no, I think I said everything. Yeah, because about the shape-shifting tour guide. Yeah, I already mentioned that. I'm trying to remember if I'm forgetting anything. But I know there could have been yeah, I think that part, it just came back to me about the pool, where I did go into a little area of the non-factory part in the office area where they did have a little small gym with a pool in it. And so anyway, I think I'm not forgetting anything. Let me think. Okay, the Nazi owners. Okay, I'm trying to think, make sure I'm not forgetting anything. And I don't think I am. So anyway, that was, and of course, that was that one sexual part. There was just one sexual part in it with the black girl. But like I say, yeah, the aliens, man, the reptilians, they are very comical. They can be very humorous. And they definitely have a sense of humor. Whereas like David Icke would be like, they have no creativity. They're not creative. Like bullshit, they're very creative. Well, the demons, the hardcore demons, maybe they're not, I don't know. But well, some of them maybe aren't, but a lot of them, they have their own personality and they're very creative, very animated, very comical. But anyway, okay, well, if I'm forgetting anything, I'll put it in the comments, but I'm pretty sure I'm not forgetting anything. Some small little details I'm sure I'm forgetting, but yeah, that one experience, I think it was to West Virginia. It wasn't the Ohio one. I'll have to go back and look at all the experiences and they've been doing that all my life, sticking me in certain towns, cities, states. Oh my God, I have all these. They sent me to Chicago way back before I even knew, that they were giving me all these experiences. But anyway, I still remember the New York City one enough where I could probably do a video on that one. But anyway, thanks for listening. But yeah, if I'm forgetting anything, I'll put it in the comments. But I don't think I'm forgetting anything. Okay, well, thanks for listening. But anyway, like I say, after this experience, I went to the veterinarian again. And of course, as I drove past the factory and I saw this black man, I was just like, it was just kind of funny, because the aliens are always putting black people in my scenarios. And they had already gave me the scenario and put a bunch of black women, no black men, but black women in my scenario. Yeah, and a matter of fact, I'm trying to think. It does seem like they normally put, it doesn't seem like they don't put black men very often in my experiences. It's normally black women. Okay, well, thanks for listening. About my cool experience to the Kraft factory by the flat-faced reptilian being with the Nazi owners, the two Nazi owners of the Kraft factory.